here, and yes, your eyes do not deceive you. That is an Edric, Spy Master of Trest.
Not a card I regularly see in Elves decks. One copy in the sideboard, and seems very good in this spot.
Vendilion Click, huh? Take a little look here. Scavenging Ooze, Green Sun Zenith, 2 copies of Pithing Needle. That's going to slow down Sensei's Divining Top. A Nettle Sentinel, a Gaia's Cradle as well. Looks like a Quirion Ranger. So we're taking the beatdown approach here with combo elves.
And not a bad way to try to be, be the counterbalance, get your clock under, into play first. Don't worry about comboing out.
Last time I saw Edric, it was in the hands of Eric Rill when he did win in Milwaukee.
One copy in his Young Pyromancer Delver deck.
Yeah, and it's a card that he didn't really get to actually draw to very often. But it is kind of a neat one-of card that we see in Cube quite a bit, but don't see in Legacy enough, even though it is a commander card.
I mean, this card is super juiced.
I love this card.
By Legacy standards, not the most powerful thing to be doing, but if this card was legal in Standard, it would be a dominant fixture.
So Click is going to take a card here. Put that to the bottom. Mystery card coming in for Anderson. I have to imagine Anderson's loving how this game is going.
It's a good start. Good beatdowns, obviously.
Anderson also has the Tropical Island here for 2 Swan Songs and then a Mindbreak Trap in the sideboard, but of course not looking to cast that one, honestly. Does have the ability because elves can make a ton of mana.
It's the second time, we've seen that card today.
I guess it's something that's really picking up in Europe, but not something we see on the American scene very much at all. For me, this weekend, this is the first time I've seen this in sideboards of elves in the Open Series. Into the red zone we go. See an Elvish Visionary, a Deathrite Shaman, and a Dryad Arbor ready to attack. Any of these do connect. It's time to draw a card.
And Williams in the weird spot of it's brutal to block and it's brutal not to block.
Let's see, Vendilion Click's going to block the Dryad Arbor, it looks like, and Quirion Ranger can pick that up and make it go away, untap Deathrite Shaman. So the mechanics here of elves, they're very powerful if you know how to utilize them. So a really nice turn here for Anderson so far. Again, lost game 1. Seems as though Miracles is quite good against elves, but listening to Joe Lisette talk about the matchup, it's not as good, he said, as people think. You think of the games where Terminus gets the job done, but there are other ones where maybe you don't find a top, maybe you don't have Terminus at the right time, then you actually have to play a game of Magic.
The more that I watch Joe play Miracles, the more I start to feel like the extremely fast decks, the Storms, the Belchers, the Elves of the world aren't quite as good as people would assume. I think your matchup against more, the turn 4 decks like High Tide or mid-range decks in general are really, really good, but you don't have a ton of defense against someone who's trying to kill you very early in the game.
If I ever get the opportunity to play in the Legacy tournament again, it might be time to go back to the Belcher.
Oh yeah, you're starting to get the little nostalgia here.
It's 2-0 on camera. What am I supposed to do, not play it? Here comes the Pithing Needle. We'll figure out what that's naming in a second. Counterbalance Trigger is going to reveal Force of Will. No 5s being cast here for Anderson. I wouldn't be surprised if this is Sensei's Divining Top, but we will get confirmation, of course, on what the Needle is naming.
Not a lot else in the Miracles deck that is worthy of a name here.
And it is top. So away that goes. Force Will going to go to the grip here for low. And it looks like the Edric game plan is really, really working here. And this is not something we have seen on the Open Series.
Yeah, this is rare. I mean, just trying to beat Blue-Eye Red Miracles by playing to the board and generating a lot of card advantage. And it is taking the sting out of a lot of these cards. I mean, there's a Jace in Williams' hand here, and it's just, barely castable. He may need to cast it this turn to Brainstorm to try to set up Terminus the next turn. But Ian has a lot of gas to refill with, that's for sure.
I'm going to search for a land here with the Arid Mesa. Looks like it is a volcanic island. See if William has also moved towards Is It Static Caster. Joe has. Actually, William does have a red card in his sideboard that we haven't seen for a little while here in Sulfur Elemental. Ooh. Take that, Death and Taxes. There's Jace. It's Brainstorm time, as you did mention. There is a Terminus over there in Lowe's hand, so I imagine that's probably going to go on top of the deck.
And he has Force of Will plus blue card, so he may be able to protect himself from something like Natural Order or just a hard cast Crater Hoof next turn. If he could get through this, he rebuilds. Ian, of course, has a lot of resources left over in his hand, but William may be able to get out of this bind.
It's time to untap. Take a draw. Thoughtseize is not a bad place to start. That'll clear the path, actually, for a natural order, if it's there.
And we know that the top card is Terminus. So that will provide no help here.
I think you just have to, I mean, you don't, I suppose you could force in this situation. I actually like forcing just to keep up appearances.
Yeah, there's, given how many cards Ian's drawn, it's inconceivable that you survive this turn, I think. Yeah, I think you have to force a will there to keep up appearances, like you mentioned.
The big question here is, does Anderson have the ability to Crater Hoof Behemoth? There's a Green Sun Zenith in hand. Could play a driver. I'm doing the math right now. It looks like 1, 2, 3.
Well, the Cradle's
4, 5,
a million
6.
mana, so
yeah, Cradle's for 7. Yeah, and this is going to be 9. You take off the green for Zenith. X equals 8. That's Crater Hoof. We know you don't have anything. You just saw the hand.
You got a 9 spot on top of your deck?
Yeah. I promise no. Now it's time to go get the beast from the east. There's Crater Hoof. Don't forget that trigger. He didn't. We're moving on to game number 3 here between Lowe and Anderson. Elves ties it up.
Very impressive. The Edric sideboard plan is really cool.
I actually like this approach. You know, assuming that that card can live in the matchup and you can get a few hits in, you can actually kind of pace the game in such a way that you can kind of come in waves.
Yeah, you can develop, you know, you don't lose the game outright to Terminus. And that's something that most conventional builds of the deck don't allow themselves for. They have to race to the board and hope that they don't get swept away. Edric allows you, as you mentioned, a more stabilized plan where you get in some shots, draw some cards. You still force a Terminus, but you have something to rebuild with.
Lowe's going to go to the sideboard. We're going to do the same here. We'll take a quick look at 2 Red Elemental Blast, a Pyroblast, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 copies of Rest in Peace, a Wear Tear, Vendilion Click, a Needle, 1 Sulfur Elemental, an Engineered Explosives, a Relic of Progenitus, and Entreat the Angels, and a Supreme Verdict. I think Explosives and Verdict are the easy place to start.
Yeah, those are just great add-ons there. Not really much else going on the sideboard here. On the other side, the Elves player, 3 Abrupt Decays, 3 Cabal Therapies, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Swansong, a Mindbreak Trap, 2 Needles, and Edric and the Progenitus. We saw the Edric already. We saw the 2 copies of Thoughtseize. Don't know if there's other discard going on. Probably safe to assume Abrupt Decay is coming in as well, fighting against Counterbalance.
Gotta believe. Do you like Swansong?
Not really. A little narrow for me. Don't want to be forced to fetch a Trop if you're playing with black spells.
Okay. I was thinking there's the potential for Swansong to counter a Terminus, and that could be maybe a backbreaker.
Yeah, maybe that is good enough. Maybe that card's so important. There's only so many cards you can board in, right? We already saw the Needles, the Thoughtseizes. One assumes Abrupt Decay. I mean, maybe it's not in there, but it seems safe to assume.
I would assume Abrupt Decay is hanging out. But I do agree with you. I think it is. You know, if we're talking Abrupt Decay, maybe some number of therapies, Thoughtseize, Swansong, Pithy Needle, and the Edric, and heck, maybe even Progenitus, you're really diluting your deck.
Yeah.
But you might just be trying to play a different game entirely after sideboard. You're not so much about comboing, so who knows? Well, everybody, if you are just joining us, we do appreciate it. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in Las Vegas. At SCG Live, hashtag SCGVEGAS for your tweets all weekend long. As you do see, we are in round 8 of 9 here. It's been fun. We watched Mono Red three-peat. Back to back to back. Tom Ross got to be happy about that.
Yeah, Tom actually, we know Tom Ross is happy. He tweeted at us earlier about it. And we're happy for Tom.
And so in honor of that tournament, Mono Red winning our Standard Open, Tom decided to play a Boss Sly Modern tournament. He played Boss Sly Modern with Lightning Bolt and a few other modifications and made top 8.
Probably Goblin Guide.
Yeah, that's possible.
Not a bad addition.
He said, my list isn't close to where it should be. Well, he might have something there. Pip Needle going to take care of top. Big card to take care of in this matchup. There's Counterbalance, so the lock is not on right now.
And William had the draw, and Ian, not dead yet, able to fend this off.
Now you just hope for the best. As you mentioned, though, William did have the best possible draw here. Top plus Counterbalance is exactly where you want to be against combo elves. Tropical Island will be searched for via Verdant Catacombs, and we'll see what spell will be cast here from Anderson. It is an Elvish Visionary. That's a Scalding Tarn, so Visionary will resolve, and this will be a draw. Glimpse of Nature was what Anderson found. So Lowe will take a draw now. The Scalding Tarns add to the grip. You see the Forcible in hand. There's also a Brainstorm and a Terminus, so can set that up at will.
Another thing that I really like about the Edric here is it gives Ian more tools to sideboard into more disruption. Because Edric kind of ameliorates drawing too much disruption because you're seeing so many cards.
Yeah. I think the Edric plan is actually a pretty good one here. Here is a Zenith. This is going to be for 2. Let's see if this resolves. This might be something that may interested in Force of Willing. There is also, as there is Counterbalance revealing a top. Pretty poor draw. There's also a Flusterstorm over there. Anderson's reaching for the deck. He's ready to let this resolve, but Lowe has to say that's okay, and it's not. So there's Flusterstorm. Again, we know that Lowe's going to be drawing a copy of Sensei's Divine Top. Good place to start here for Anderson is an attack for 1. Everything else is done for the turn. But Lowe has no interest in drawing that Sensei's Divine Top, so going to sacrifice a Scalding Tarn, search up a land.
This is pretty impressive stuff, that the amount of work this Pithy Needle is doing here. I think William had a draw that would be really tough for Elves to beat if that top didn't get needled. I mean, Brainstorm, Terminus, Counterbalance, all the tools. Now William having to play something more of an honest game.
That's a beautiful hand. Really is. Flooded Strand is the draw. That's going to come directly into play. All Lowe can do is pass the turn back. Still has not cast that Brainstorm just yet. Quirion Ranger looks to be the draw here for Anderson. So there's a Misty. And do we start just by attacking for 1? Yes, we do. So Lowe's going to go down to 17. Just whittling away at the life total right now. Not doing anything too busted and broken yet, but it doesn't take Elves long to go from 0 to 60.
Well, he's got some glimpses and 1-drops in the chamber here, so he can start going here, potentially at a moment's notice.
And there is Glimpse. So now it's time to give it a try. Counterbalance trigger. Terminus. That's not the worst thing to reveal. Now we'll see how much Anderson wants to get moving. Might not be very much.
I think he wants to, he still wants to probably deploy some stuff here. He needs some amount of setup, but certainly seeing Terminus on the top changes a lot of things.
Well, Quirion Ranger will be cast. So that's going to cantrip at the very least.
I believe Ian has found that Progenitus yet again.
Everybody's favorite. Just right in the hand.
It rears its ugly 12 heads yet again.
Terminus is going to take care of those 2 creatures. Time for Misty Rainforest to be sacrificed. You got to imagine this is going to be a Dryad Arbor here. Such a great card to find with the green fetch land. There is the land. It'll help with the cradle production as well. So just a baby glimpse on that turn. Doesn't want to move in too much, but the Terminus coming. What Anderson does know, however, is that Lowe has access to another Terminus due to the Brainstorm in hand. And it's not going to be immediate, of course, because the Terminus is also there, so there will be some assembly required. Anderson going to start here by casting another Glimpse. Time to check with Counterbalance if there's 1, and there is not, just another Terminus.
Well, it's hard to be too mad about there being another Terminus on top of your deck.
Yeah.
You know? I know it's frustrating, you want to free roll the 1 or whatever, but if it was a land, trust me, you would know how bad it could get.
Yes. So, there's a Wirewood. That's going to draw a card. Draws into a Dryad Arbor. And in comes Dryad Arbor. So, again, just kind of pacing him in such a way that he doesn't expose himself too much to Terminus. So, yeah, he's going to lose the Dryad Arbor and he's going to lose the Wirewood, but Terminus isn't really being a backbreaker like it normally is.
Yeah. Although it's taking a lot of the sting out of these glimpses, that's for sure.
That's the big one. These glimpses have been rather poor. And I don't know if you're supposed to move in more with the glimpses in that situation, but now simply having to pass the turn back, it just doesn't seem acceptable to me, you know?
Yeah.
See what Anderson has to do this turn. You saw Lowe just play a land, has the ability to hard cast Force of Will now. But Needle is doing a real number on this game. If Needle's not there,
oh, it's
my
over.
goodness.
Terminus, Brainstorm, Counterbalance.
It's
probably good enough to beat Elves there.
It's a beating. It is a beating. So Anderson going to look through the graveyard here very quickly. Doesn't like what he sees. There's Deathrite, of course. That's the reason for the check. There's an Arbor. This will be a bunch of mana. So here's a natural order, sacrificing the Arbor. Wondering if this is going to resolve. And Counterbalance Trigger will allow for a Brainstorm. So hit 1, 2, and 3. So I'll counterspell Jace and a land among those cards. Actually a pretty good Brainstorm, able to put a 4 on top.
That's a huge set of draws here too. Also gets to set the Terminus exactly how he wants to.
Yep, so there's Jace. That's going to counter that. You saw Anderson finally make his move. Try to resolve that, but did not work. Jace will be the draw. A land, now a Jace. With Counterspell Enforceable in hand.
And the ability to get Terminus too.
Yep, it's time to Fate Seal.
And that's really aggressive. I mean, William feels like this is good enough to win the game with. He's going immediately to Fate Sealing. And with William knowing that he has Terminus on top, it's not surprising that he would go ahead and do this.
Not willing to cast it, though.
He can hard cast it now, so there's no need.
Yeah, that's true, in case things get hairy. Time to Fate Seal. I was going to mention the time, when you see it right there in the middle. We're almost at 2 minutes, but Jace has a way of getting things done quickly.
It's faster than you'd think.
Wooded Foothill's going to come in. Anderson just going to pass the turn back. It's time for Jason yet again here from Lowe. Lowe is really picking up the pace now.
I mean, he can sense it. He knows he's got the win. It's just a matter of time.
The verdict, just for a Deathrite. Deathrite's going to go active, take care of Terminus. Lowe's going to go down to 12. But get that thing off the table. Sacrifice there, Wooded Foothills. Go get a Dried Arbor. There's your beatdowns. That'll keep that Jason check.
I mean, it may be enough to force the draw, and a draw is fine for both these players right now. In theory, it leaves them both in a position to play next round and still make the elimination rounds.
So there's the Arbor. You saw a Cradle added to the hand. Anderson looks like he might wants to cast a different spell. And he's going to go, are we going upstairs?
Whoa.
Huh.
Would not have guessed.
There's a Wirewood, reveal Force of Will, so that's good. Well, it says Wirewood's fine. Here's more mana. This is 4. Natural Order. You're not, there's no way you're resolving. Sacrifice Dried Arbor. I was going to sacrifice 2 fetch lands, go down to 9. This looks like a hard cast counterspell to me.
Yeah.
Looks like only 1. Okay, so it looks like there's a counterbalance trigger on the stack. You sacrifice 1 fetch land, try to hit, I think is what we see here. And then he sacrifices the other fetch land if he doesn't hit.
But I don't know if there's just enough time for this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
know?
I agree with you. You know, this is, I think, a situation where you just, because time is of the essence, excuse me, I think this is a situation, well, there you go. You're going to want to get that second blue, where he's playing pretty quickly, but I don't think you have time for that counterbalance stuff, as you mentioned. Get your two fetch lands, get 2 islands, shortcut, cast counterspell, I think is where you're at. And we're going to find out exactly who has turn number 1 here. And I think it is Lowe, but we will find out here. As both players were playing pretty quickly. Now they can slow down a little bit.
Yeah, but has too much damage already been done? I don't know if we're in turn 1 right now. Is a big question if William is able to generate a kill in third.
Yeah, William's turn 1, 3, and 5. So you can put Jace up to 11, 13, and ultimate on the last turn of the game. But that's not winning the game.
Right. And again, a draw is totally fine for Eden in this position too. He can still play and win next round in top 8.
And so now you're going to see Lowe shift into Brainstorm mode. And I think the reason for this is I need to try to find a card like Entreat the Angels, though I would be a little bit surprised if that's in his deck after sideboard. There are 2 in the main and an additional in the board, but it's got to be, now or never.
Yeah, and like you said, Intrigue seems one of the first cards you would cut in this matchup.
And that is a Scalding Tarn. So Lowe has to shift gears now simply because time is of the essence. Now we're on turn 2. Anderson, I don't think, can win the game. And if there was enough time, there was no chance he'd win the game.
And I wonder if that was the reason that Ian attacked William last turn instead of the Jace. If Ian thought there was still some chance he could cobble together lethal, and he was confident William could not kill him in time.
Time does change the way that you play.
Yes.
You know, we were surprised to see Jace be ignored by that Dryad Arbor a few minutes ago, but it's more important to try to get your opponent dead if you only got 2 minutes left on the clock and then a couple of turns. Oh, in for one we go. See a Cradle over there. A couple other things here for Anderson. Progenitor is rearing its ugly head in the hand. I think all Anderson can do is pass the turn back. Nothing really to do. We'll make sure we're on the right turns here. Top card is drawn. I'm a little surprised Lowe didn't sacrifice that Scalding Tarn knowing what the top card was going to be. But to me, it feels like, okay, if that's the case and that's what happened, then Entreat the Angels isn't in the deck.
Yeah, it seems like if that was something that was possible, it would have been on Williams' radar immediately as a line of play.
There you do see the best Planeswalker in Magic history. Would have led Lowe to a win given a few more minutes, but they're not there. Now you can see him antagonizing over what he's supposed to do. And I just don't think there's enough time for him to win the game. I don't think there's enough time for either player to win.
Well, not with Jace.
No.
No, that's not a thing.
If Lowe had continued down the same path, Jace would be on 13. Potentially.
Yeah.
Wirewood could have attacked it. You know, we never know. It looked like it would have been around that life total. So now turn 4, Anderson will draw. As you mentioned, a draw's not the end of the thing for either one of these players.
No, it's. I'm sure William would have preferred to win this match given the circumstances, but it's not the end of the world.
There's another Wirewood. Counterbalance trigger if Lowe does remember, and he does. Take a look, it's a Needle, so that's gone. Needle, oddly enough, really good against Wirewood symbiote as well. So both players using Pithy Needle to great effect.
Bunch of creatures in Elves.
Yeah, a lot of targets.
Mana creatures and Prairie Rangers and symbiotes and all sorts of things.
Looks like it's going to be an attack here yet again. Take one. I think, you know, a little bit of frustration probably here from each player, knowing that this is going to result in a draw. There's no way for either player to win.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the fact of the matter. And there's going to be a passing of the turn. This will be a wear and tear on Needle. This would get counterbalanced back.
William maybe just is trying to demonstrate here the extent to which he has it locked up, but
yeah. Doesn't matter now.
Ian is more than within his rights to play this out to its natural conclusion, which is a draw.
There's your shuffle. Draw card with top, just trying to hit something. Yeah, that's not going to do it. So we're going to have a draw here between Ian Anderson and William Lowe. These players are both going to move on to 6-1-1. Not too surprising to see Miracles in the draw bracket. Probably not the best place for Elves, however.
Yeah.